Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It On. So off camera I spent some time making some spells, mostly for Ebb and Siren. Also updated Lantry spell list and one of Barik spells. Last episode when I gave him Taunting Jest, I gave him the Duration Sigil. I swapped that to the Sigil of Cyclical Energies for the reduced cooldown. Then for Lantry I put him into more of a support role, or a crowd control role. I gave him Mischievous Mass with the Sigil of Timeless Form and Sigil of Cyclical Energies, and Withering Cloud with Timeless Form and Cyclical Energies. I think that's the only changes I made. Anyway, so when I was making spells and I tried to click on Ebb to put her in our party, I accidentally clicked on this center spire. There's more to say here, but first we also have this. This fire pit burns with embers that give off an ethereal glow. Looking to the flame, you feel you can see the glimpses of distorted faces. You feel as if your reach is broadened. You feel the push and pull of your influence growing throughout the tiers. If you concentrate, it would appear you can begin the same trance that showed you glimpses of the previous spire. Touch the resonator and concentrate. Once more you touch the sculpture, and once more your mind is flooded with sensation. This time your sense is leaving your body and floating up, higher even than the mountain spire, until all of Tyranny is beneath your feet. From high above, you see the mystic currents moving about Tyranny, billowing clouds of every color that churn about the realms. Even from this far away vantage point, the cyclones and currents of magic fill you with dread and foreboding. Now send your thoughts downward. As you imagine the senses of heaviness, your perceptions drift toward the ground, hurtling through the soil until your vision resumes in the dark, foreboding halls of the old walls. Though you can make out almost nothing in the cramped darkness of the old walls, you can feel the old walls running through the soil of Tyranny, linking many of the spires with these mystical arteries. Send your senses toward the mystic currents. As you near the mystic currents, you hear inchoate voices, commands, proclamations, the stuff of edicts. All across Tyranny, the edicts of Kyros, some centuries old, still live on, their arcane signatures bright as the midday sun, seemingly stronger than the day they were proclaimed. As your senses float away from the arcane turbulence, you're struck by the fact that land untouched by edicts appear to be in the minority. Even lands long ago conquered by Kyros are still haunted by edicts, whether because they still linger from the olden days of conquest, or if they were cast more recently to suppress, not suppresses, rebellion. Your senses cannot glean. Step away from the sculpture. Alright, let's go down and check out the citadel. See if there's anything new down here. Then we have a couple of side areas to head to. A stash and a smith. So I'm going to speed up through here since we've been through here once before. And this is all new. This damage dates back to Kyros' initial conquest of the tiers. That is one of the few blemishes remaining. That it is one of the few blemishes remaining is testament to the Avenging Guard's reconstruction efforts. Heavy bronze armor.
Can't do that.
At the very least, that's something to sell. Bronze axe and some beast blood pollen. Some fruit. Yes, I'm gonna have a hard time swapping between characters. Oh, so this is the other half. This is the courtyard that I didn't get a chance to explore because there was a cutscene. Because I was looking at like their stats. It does seem like their stats do increase even if they're not in the party. So they do gain experience while they are sitting back at the spire. Because I looked at Ebb's, which I believe all of her skills were evened out. Like she didn't have any experience in any of them. Now she has some experience in like parry and dodge and lore and stuff like that. I could be misremembering, so I'm trying to commit it to memory so I can check again later. And see if the inactive companions do gain experience while they're not in your party. The central spire stretches into the clouds, targeting a height that is difficult to comprehend. From here, it appears completely unassailable.
Interesting. Can't do that.
I'm definitely glad I was able to come back here. Not a ton of stuff, but, you know, stuff all the same. You can't go wrong with stuff. Oh, so you can't even go to the other half of it. Interesting. Okay. Well, let us go to the Forge-bound supply cache. 1 day, 12 hours, and 15 minutes. I'll take it. Encounter in Lethian's Crossing. At the end of the road, a small child crouches next to an abandoned wagon, rummaging through its contents. From afar, she resembles a bedraggled urchin, a smirking face lined with dirt, her tunic torn and thoroughly stained. She spots your approach and lets out a small yelp, sprinting off into a copse of trees and vanishing from view. Yeah, should I follow the girl? Probably not, right? Yeah, let's follow the girl. You follow the child as she weaves between the trees, until the forest gives way to open fields of a small farmstead, empty from the last harvest. The girl leads you across the grounds, past 2 empty houses and a row of clay beehives, eventually racing into an open barn. As you enter after her, you see a clutch of children huddled in the rear, trembling as you approach. There are 6 in all, gaunt faces and tired eyes shared amongst them all. One boy drops a small knife as you approach, letting it vanish within the folds of straw at his feet. The children swear they are alone, claiming to be orphans from a massacred village. They fled during the fighting and retreated to this farmstead. Its owners, they claim, slain by Kyros' forces. The barn is full of harvested rye and a few jars of stored honey. No doubt the reasons why these children are still alive. Yeah, ask about the empty cart on the road. Some of the children exchange concerned glances before the little girl you trailed speaks up. Her voice wavers, and she blurts out a stammering explanation. The cart was likely used by a traveling merchant and abandoned once soldiers clashed in a nearby area. Her eyes flick to the ground for a brief moment, long enough for you to follow its gaze to a leather boot barely visible between tied bundles of standing straw. You push past them and kick aside the bundles, revealing the corpse of a middle-aged man with multiple puncture wounds in his neck and back. The children gasp at the revelation, and some begin to cry. The young girl pleads innocence, claiming that the man discovered the farm and attacked her, pinning her in the straw before her friends returned and stabbed him to death. She begs you to believe her. You know what? Yeah. Send them to train as spies for Tunan's court. They're mere children. The scamps are tenacious and clever. Requirements for survival out here, alone. It may be of use in Tunan's court. Left to their own devices, they almost certainly die in time. You pen a declaration. The children are to be evaluated by the court's fate binders for possible service. And should they be found lacking, assign a local tradesman as best suits the needs of the city. The journey won't be easy, you caution, but it is necessary. They want to survive past the next season. The young girl takes the parchment and thanks you, though the rest of the children look unsure of the matter. You collect some grain and honey for yourself and exit the barn, leaving them to contemplate their fate. So did I gain favor here? It says I picked up honey and grain, but I don't see anything here, so... Okay. Alright, here we are. Alright, new missive from Rogueless. Dear Donald, your summation is most fascinating. Thank you for sharing. You're certainly not the first to proclaim an edict. Many of us have been used to complete the casting of the Overlord's magic. You aren't the first to break an edict, though that list of names is a smaller, more exclusive list. What's curious, though, living and recorded memory make no mention of someone who proclaimed and shattered the same edict. In that regard, you are an anomaly. So hard to say. Along with this parchment, I've included the contact information of the Honorable Fatebinder Meothis, an old peer of mine, and perhaps the most knowledgeable in the court on matters not taught to us by Tunon. Treat her with respect, and she will not betray your confidence. Best of luck, Donald. I think things are about to get even stranger for you. Fatebinder Rogueless. So she gave us... what? A quill in hand, you loom over a blank sheet of parchment. You have Binder Meothis's contact information in hand and contemplate your opening words. Polite introduction. Dear Fatebinder Meothis, I write to you at the urging of my peer and tutor, Fatebinder Rogalus. He has found himself bereft of answers, a rare condition for him, and suggested you may be the only source of the answers I seek. If you'll pardon the imposition, it would mean a great deal to learn what you know of Kyros' edicts and the magic of the spires. The mountain spire of the Tears has awoken to my presence, an event that occurred moments after I resolved an edict of Kyros, so it's critical that I learn just what has happened to me and what it all means. I thank you in advance for your consideration and wisdom. Fatebinder Donald. Sweet. Gonna get learned. What do we got here?
Interesting.
Ooh. A lot of goodies right there. Bronze guitar. Gosh, I don't know if I've seen a guitar in a game since Diablo 2. A lot of resources. Heavy bronze crested helm. I'll see how that compares. Is this all going into versus inventory? No. Some more armor, a little less armor there. Better recovery. And it looks a little cooler. I'll take it. Then for you, Verse, how does this compare? It's worse. The exact same. Okay. Then for you, buddy, how does this compare? I think this is what I swapped him from, right? It was a bronze axe to the forge-bound hammer. Because I wanted the DPS and the armor penetration. Alright, I guess I didn't miss anything here. Extremely out of the way, but so be it. Alright, let's swap by the mountain spire and sell some stuff that I picked up. Then we'll go to the next location for Barik's quest. See if I can't break him out of that armor. Alright, Donald. Do you remember your training under Blood and Mark? I remember mine. Funny to think that you and I are about a century apart, but to Blood and Mark, we're all children. I'm now the oldest of the court's children. I've seen much in my time. It's probably for the best everyone assumes I'm old, harmless, and we're shuffling away in the archives. If I were scrutinized too closely, I'm sure Tunon would find I've grown lax in my spoiled old age. Part of why I am where I am is that I've kept my head down. You appear to be doing the opposite. In some regards, this is beyond your control. You were chosen for the honor of proclaiming Kyros' edicts. Twice. To decline would have meant death, but to accept means to be placed on the stage for all to see. Kyros' most powerful weapon is not the edict. It's her ability to hand us rope that we willingly use to hang ourselves. Never forget this. There are numerous questions nestled in your request. What is it you wish to know most? Focus your inquiry, and I'll answer as best I can. Fatebinder Meothis. Let's ask about the spires first. Dear Meothis, it seems wise to know one's own domain. And seeing as I am now the master of the mountain spire, I ought to learn all that I can. If you would share with me what you know of the spires, I would be in your debt. I'll start with what I know and have observed so far. The mountain spires seemed to awaken at about the same instant that Kyros' edict of execution was put to rest. There's a burst of arcane energy that drowned out my senses, and I awoke at the summit of the spire, what seemed to be just a few heartbeats of time. Atop the spire is an old sculpture of sorts, and it seems to be the core of the spire's mystic energy. I've been seeing visions and receiving sensations from this sculpture. It seems odd to describe it as talking to me, but that seems the closest analogy. Am I the first to report such things? There are other spires elsewhere in the world, correct? Donald. Oh, I did not send it. Whoopsies. Oh, whoops. Did I... Yeah, okay. Oh, let's do some trading real fast. What do we got? Bunch of garbage. Bunch of garbage. I find it interesting that it seems like most of the characters are intended to use light armor. Except for Barik, but he's trapped in his current armor, so what... I'm the only character that can reasonably use heavy armor. So it feels a waste for me not to use it, you know? Even if I wanted to not use it, I feel like I'd still be obligated to. But I do see, like, the... how light armor would be considered better anyway. Alright, with that in mind, let us hire this guy. Then we're going to talk to him real fast, and then we'll go to that other location. Because this guy should produce weapons for us. In fact, I wonder if these guys have produced anything for me yet. Well, I think I just hired merchants here. These guys don't produce anything, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, let's go back. The only guy that I have to produce free stuff for me at the Mountain Spire does camping supplies, and you can only carry 6. I've only used 1. I wonder if that's... if the pacing of the game is going to change enough to where I start to actually use those. There is Kenrick. I should probably rest as well before we go to the other location to get that rest bonus. Kenrick. A burly smith draws his arm across his brow and nods to you. Kenrick, smelter. Not quite a master, but you know, getting there. I've never worked this high up before. He shrugs. First time for everything. Let's put you to work. Let's put you to work making me some weapons, shall we? He nods. Let me show you what I already have, or have already. Camping supplies. Oh, it's probably from the other guy. Okay. Cool. So is that... So you collect everything from one person. That makes it so much easier. I wonder if it's across all the spires as well. So I was a little concerned about that, having to do all that, like, traveling around. Our secluded forge. Here we go. I didn't rest. That's alright, I have the well-fed bonus right now. Sorry, I have a itchy ear. There we go. Greetings, Donald. You're correct. There are spires all across Tyranny. The exact distribution of these monuments fuels all sorts of debate and speculation, but 2 facts seem commonplace. Most spires are built near old walls. Your mountain spire is a notable exception. And nearly every culture that predated Kyros has some local myth to explain the builders of these spires. I believe the Tiersmen cite the Older Realms as their local name for the spire old walls architects, but nobody knows for sure. And of course, where Kyros has brought a proper civilization, the origin of the spire simply isn't discussed in good company. Here's what I think you need to know. First, the spires behave as arcade lodestone. There's a constant field of magical strength around a spire. If you imagine a mystic sea resting atop our world, the spires seem to spin and churn this magic, creating a spell cast with even the modest effort will materialize with powerful results. A second, and I'd say most tellingly, Kyros has laws against entering the old walls, but there are no laws against the spires. You could infer from this that means Kyros has no issue with the lay folks messing with the spires, but wishes to keep us safe from the old walls. Or you could think like an overlord, know that if you place a rule against something, you make it forbidden and desirable. Now I find it telling that Kyros forbids the hallways that lead to the spires, but is not paying a target on the spires themselves. Last but not least, as a young Fatebinder, I once had to oversee the case of a man who had built a shrine to Kyros around the base of a spire in the far southeast. I could find no evidence of falsity or slander. His shrine was the most reverent and loving tribute as I've ever seen. At one point, though, this man claimed he had evidence that Kyros was here back in -50. He had merely uttered those words, and my senior binder swung the axe then and there. Being the new girl at the court, I said nothing, but I have long wondered why such a comment would require death instead of the traditional removal of the tongue. Fatebinder Meothis. I inquire about edicts and their nature. Dear Meothis, thank you for hearing me out. I have more questions than I have ink, but let's start with a discussion of Kyros' edicts. I have lived under, proclaimed, and resolved edicts, which makes me far more knowledgeable than the layperson on the subject, and yet I still know so little. Donald. Hello, Lycentia. Hello, Tearsman Hunting Bow. In stark contrast to the tools of the Overlord's forge, forge-bound smiths, its equipment bears the marks of heavy use and inconstant maintenance. Mixed flavors of oil and sulfur cling to the back of your mouth. A much-abused earthenware jug dominates this small table, the only flat surface in this room not apparently dedicated to the smith's craft. An acerbic odor of strong, stale wine lurks in the air around it. Some more heavy bronze armor that I can sell. Alright, Lycentia. Cool air stirs your clothes as you step into the small workshop, despite the lit forge you see against the back wall. A dark-robed woman stalks the center of the space, fingers dancing against her chin, eyebrows furrowed in thought. Sooty smears on her skin suggest he touches her face often. She spares you an initially dismissive glance, but follows it with a surprised double take. Oh, screw me, the Fatebinder. I mean, what brings you to my humble atelier? I take it you know me. Does anybody not? Spires don't exactly light up like the sun every day. Who are you? You sought me out. I assume you knew already. Or do you make a habit of walking to strangers' houses? I'm called Lycentia. I know my sigils, but mostly I'm a crafter. They keep me around for odd jobs, fixing tools, repairing armor, and generally trying to keep Halfgate from falling into the stone sea. Nice forge. Thanks, I made it myself. She chuckles. I'm particularly fond of the heat wards, not just on account of the comfort. Keeps the place from going up in flames, barring anything unusual. Had the thought after. She frowns and drops into silence. After the Vellum Citadel? After the Vellum Citadel. Are you a sage? Is anyone anymore? Heard the school burned up. Surprised you took notice. Lycentia here is a former sage. It's not that she ever officially left. It's more she got tired of life in the Citadel and never came back. I studied among the sages once, years ago. Worked for the royalty of Azure for a while after that. Nice work, until Cairn arrived. You going to prosecute me? She looks you over. Not today. Let me ask again. Why are you here? I have a forge of my own if you'd like to relocate. It's significantly larger, provides a much better view. A Wildbinder. First you compliment my forge, then you turn around and tell me yours is bigger. You've got a real way with words. I'm happy where I am, thanks. I need you to examine my friend Barik. This one, I assume. He's pointy. Her gaze wanders around Barik's assortment of sharp edges.
Mostly on top of his head.
Must you always be an ass, Verse?
As we said back in Ass Gang, once an ass, always an ass.
Damn it, Fatebinder, why can't you leave this be?
Because I love you, Barik. I want you to be happy. I'll leave what be? I hoped you might free Barik of this bronze and iron prison.
Fatebinder, you know as well as I that Tunon forbade this. I cannot be complicit.
Oh, just what will you do? Sit on the floor and cross your arms like a child?
I mean, he could leave.
If I must. If that will make the Fatebinder see reason.
I promise you that this will be for the best, friend. Let me deal with the legal ramifications.
I have little confidence that Tunon will see it the same way. Or that you will be able to shield me from his wrath.
I assume that you want to come out with your... Yeah, I assume that you want to come out with all your bits regardless, right? Then hold still and quiet down. Before anything else, I need to ask you a few questions. What manner of questions? Understand that there may be things we can't tell you. I won't ask anything political or tactical, only matters personal. Hardly reassuring. First, have you ever engaged in sexual congress? What? I don't... How can that... That can't be relevant, Barik sputters. He doesn't understand the first thing about mystic sympathy, does he? The smith frowns and looks to you. That's important, Barik, particularly in the case of a possible convergence of arcane energies, to rule out resident adulteration. I suppose that sounds reasonable. The armor has prevented anything from happening recently, regardless of whether or not I wanted it to. Before that, well, the Legion is... I spent a... people I cared for deeply. We are the pride of the North, strong and beautiful. He creaks quietly. I get it, Barik. Sparring is like dancing. It gets pretty hot. Do not compare the virtuous combat rituals of the disfavored to your scarlet rutting. That's all I shall speak of it. I never passed time with a mage, or archon, oathbound, beastwoman, or anything else unusual. Nothing unusual. I've always heard that there's a special bond between a disfavored officer and their submissives. Sorry, subordinates. Is there anything you're unwilling to soil with your perversion, witch? You wore forge-bound armor during the conquest, correct? The smith nods. And prior to it. Was it sigil woven, enchanted against harm? I do not believe so. It was iron. Have you had sigils of any kind branded into your skin? I bear the mark of the disfavored, nothing else. The mark of the disfavored. The general sigil, rather what of it the Overlord's decree allows. Many members of the Legion scar themselves with it, binding their loyalty into their flesh and blood. It marks us family. I've heard it said that Graven Ash protects. The sages had no direct knowledge of the Archon of War's abilities, but there were many, many theories. I don't suppose you can provide any concrete information. You asked me to reveal the great general secrets. To a mage. That is too much. The Archon Ash shares a strong connection with his soldiers. It allows them to take on some of their harm, while also sharing in their experiences. Fatebinder. His gaps contains anger and disbelief in equal measure. You do not need repairs or maintenance on the armor, I presume. Aside from oiling it and filing down the pointier bits, no. Wait, how did you know that? Metal grinds quietly. The smith stares at Barik in thoughtful silence, before retrieving from the forge a long bar of iron, its end glowing red from the heat. She holds it out to you. What am I supposed to do with this? Take it to start with. What comes next? He's going to want a friend doing it. Take it. Next you want to stick that into him, through his armor. It's going to hurt regardless, but I suspect quicker would be better. She leans towards you, lowering her voice. Are you insane? Perhaps a little. Comes with having almost everyone and everything you know wiped from the face of Tyranny, with a few magic words from a distant tyrant. She shakes her head. But no, I'm not without reason. Stab Barik. Howling in agony, Barik staggers backwards, grasping at his side. The smell of burnt flesh hits your nostrils a moment later. Reaching down, Lycentia grabs the iron rod and tugs it from Barik's side, eliciting another scream of pain. She takes a step back as his gauntlet swings out in a wild attempt to backhand her. Shoot on a ill-starred beast mother of butts. What in the great general's name, woman? You tell Lycentia, was that necessary? Of course it was not necessary. I did not ask for this. Barik roars, his armor ringing like a gong as he slams one gauntleted fist into the other. Amazing. Smith holds up the sizzling metal prod, drawing a sigil in the air with her free hand. Examine the wound. You bend close to the wound, but Barik's hand is clamped over the hole in his side, obscuring your view. Yeah, I need to see the injury, Barik. With slow reluctance, Barik moves his gauntleted hand from the hole in his side. You peer through the hole in the oxidized bronze and iron shell, willing yourself to ignore the mixing smells of cooked meat with fetid human waste, You see the ragged, oozing flesh beneath, a gasping red cavity pulsing in time with Barik's labored breath. Even as you watch, the wound seems to close, bronze-colored skin knitting together at the edges, like a slowly closing mouth. It's not merely the skin, however. Barik's armor cage slowly shifts and flows, incrementally reducing the aperture. Are you seeing this too? His armor seems to be healing, just like his flesh. Exactly, and the edges. If she's making any attempt to hide her excitement, she's failing spectacularly. Your armor and flesh heal as one. Is that a standard property among the disfavored? She straightens, peering into Barik's mismatched eyes. Not to my knowledge. If he and his armor heal as one, they're likely mystically bound together. Indeed. Tudon likes them smart, I take it. The question remains, though. Why does this happen? She smiles appreciatively at you. I have a working theory. What I can't make out is what differentiates you from the other disfavored, who served in the Blade Grave. Maybe it's some trick of the blood. Maybe it's your connection to the Fatebinder. Maybe something else. But I barely knew the Fatebinder prior to Vendrian's Well. There's a lot we don't understand about how the world works. Kyros' strictures against literacy and inquiry don't exactly help. She glances at you. Choose your words carefully, Smith. Ah, apologies, Fatebinder. She blanches, swallowing. Before I can suggest a solution, I need a sample of alloyed iron and bronze from the site of your entrapment. About this much should do. She holds her open palms about 6 inches apart. Can we just cut that much off of Barik? Fatebinder. No, I'm afraid. Even if Barik were disposed to the idea. She raises an eyebrow. I am not. I need this sample as a point of comparison. Taking it from him would be meaningless. If I happen upon some, I'll consider bringing it to you. We'll get you the sample. Then I wait your return. She turns from you, peering thoughtfully into her slack tub in the... She turns from you, peering thoughtfully into her slack tub and the iron rod within. I'm sorry that Barik doesn't like us doing this for him. I don't know what the repercussions are going to be of having a high fear with Barik, but hopefully it's nothing too bad. So it was unlocked. Sentinel Stand Outskirts. I can't talk. Alright, so I'm going to call the episode here, and the next one we'll head to Sentinel Stand Outskirts. Oh, I didn't read the descriptions for these. My bad. It's a forge-bound supply cache. This location was used as a forge-bound supply drop for materials shipped by water, but has fallen into disuse following the increased wartime instability. Lycentia showed you this location, which may still have items of use to you. And... Secluded Forge. A small smithy rests on the outskirts of the city, overlooking a deep gorge. A plume of smoke rises from its chimney, marking its presence well before it comes into sight. Alright, I'm going to call it here, and the next one we'll pursue Barik's quest. I mean, he can't hate us any more than he does right now, so... I don't like him hating me, though. I wonder if there were options, like dialogue options, that would have prevented his wrath, or his fear from increasing. There are ways to reduce it, but none that I've seen so far. I've reduced his loyalty once. Darn it, Barik. Oh, either way, thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next one.